Well, this is Baruch here. I'm at the Tikkun Elevator Kollel, and once again we're looking at Jewish astrology, a cosmic science, and I just wanted to start off with this concept. Now, in two dimensions, it's not possible to show this as balls. There's one ball inside the next, but that's actually what it is because it's 360 in every direction. It's a ball. These are a series of balls. Now, what he's going to talk about tonight is going to be talk a little bit about the direction of the flow of energy which is coming down to the earth. So it goes through these various different rings, which are not rings, but really they're completely circular like balls. And it goes through all of them until it reaches, and these are all filters as they are going downwards. So let's come over here and let's see what Reb Yaakov has got to tell us. We're starting the second chapter of this section. So, like I say, the book's a little bit unwieldy, so excuse me. He said, it's important to know where the energies coming down are originating from. But just as important is understanding how these energies are received. How do people receive these energies? How does the world receive them? Why is everybody different? Can you change the energy that comes down from above? The Zohar talks about different entities here on earth receiving these energies that come down, not just people. But let's start with people, who can get good news or bad news coming down, but it is not only the news that counts, but also how the person receives it and what is his current state of consciousness and makeup. So he says, once a teacher of mine told me a story about his grandfather, who was a great Kabbalist. And one day, after giving a lesson, a woman who was not so modestly dressed and not particularly religious asked him to give her a blessing. So he replied, I can give you a blessing, but can you receive the blessing? Now, this is really, to me, a very, very deep idea. Because people say like this, well, I pray, I didn't see anything happen. So that's a question. You can get a blessing, you could ask for a blessing, but you may not recognize it. Now, we'll learn later on here in Likutei Moharan some of the reasons why they talk about this. But it's the same flavor. So everything, excuse me, is basically like a two-way street. There are energies coming down and there are energies going up. And there is the question of how we receive these energies and deal with them and what we send up. So the book of the Zohar says that the earth itself has 7 divisions with their unique influences. Up until now, we've been talking mainly about the heaven and its 7 palaces of influences in the world of Asiya, and how they divided and influenced below. So that's what we talked about, the different heavens that we saw before, which refer always to the Olam of Asiya, in the world of action, which is also called the world of wheels. And how they are divided and influenced below, as mentioned in the Talmud, Tractate Chagiga, where it describes the world of Asiya as being divided into earth and heaven, and both are divided into 7 parts, all of which influence us. So what are the 7 divisions of the earth? Part of the world of Asiya, action, which means action. The Zohar gives us 2 opinions. It either means 7 areas of climate, where the climate is different from one another, and this is because the sources of energy it receives is from a different part of heaven, from different palaces, and so you're going to understand that there's sort of like a track, or a roadway, or a tzinor, a canal of some sort, that brings the energy down. So in different places, connected to different palaces. And so you get different people, different animals and vegetation and minerals. In one area, and they are different from people and things in another clime. Now that's the way to think about it. He says that one way of looking at it is that there are 7 different climates on the planet Earth. The second way is explained that the Earth itself is divided into 7 layers. There's the outer layer, and there are inner and inner layers until you get to the center of Earth, and each layer is related to a different palace up above in heaven. Now this is information that has to be processed. Let's go on. So he says, so the Zohar of Vayikra, so he has a phrase in the Zohar. He says, Rabbi Yehuda opened and began, and he said like this, and God said, let there be a firmament inside the water, and let it be between the waters. So he says, come and see and realize when God created the world, he created 7 firmaments up in heaven, and he created 7 earths, that is different kinds of lands down below on earth. And which are the days, and which are the days between the festivals of Passover, and he created 7 seas, that's where I was, or oceans, 7 rivers, 7 days, 7 weeks, 7 times 7. So we get all of these 7s, which is the number of Malchus, or earth, which are the days between the festivals of Passover and Shavuos, which are 49 days. That's 7 times 7. The 7th year is the Shemitah year, the cycle of the work in the land. And the 7 times 7 years of the freedom, a cycle of freedom, which ends with the Jubilee, when everything is set free. And the 7,000 years that the world exists, and God is the 7th of everything. And God is in the 7th of everything, in the 7th level of everything. In other words, he's in the deepest level of everything. 7 suns, so the 7 firmaments above, and in each are different stars, constellations, objects created as servants, suns, planets, and chariots on top of chariots. Merkava, this is the word Merkava, which means vehicles going into the spiritual world, coming back down, which belong to the ministering angels. Who are these vehicles? Who rule over different things in the world so they can receive whatever comes from God's kingdom, which is above them. Some of the angels have 6 wings. Some have 4 each. Some have 4 faces each. Some have 2, some 1. One of these heavenly objects is of hot air, or hot fire, from the side of the angel Gabriel. Gabriel's Lashon Gevurah, which is 10. Some of them come from water, and they come from the angel Michael, which is Lashon kindness. So some are made out of air from Uriel, as is written, he makes his angels like spirit, his servants as burning fire. Now what he means to say is, these are the qualities that these channels, which are these angels, these are the qualities of the channels, depending on where they go, who they go to, and all many different kinds of ways of interaction. All these firmaments are one on top of the other, like an onion, and its layers, which is divided into different parts. Now let me see, I'm running out of room here. Let me see if I can bring this up just a little bit more. So let's just a little where we different part. And each firmament, that is palace, makes a tremendous sound out of fear of the Master of God, who is above everything, and whose sound makes them stand and move, and everything is run by his power and strength. He's saying that Hashem is, as if you could say, possibly say, like the electricity that empowers everything that exists. The Zohar then goes on to propose 2 answers to what the 7 parts of the earth are. The first theory is that the 7 parts of earth are 7 lands, climates, as we said before, and they are like 7 different worlds. But all these parts of all have people who dwell on them. The difference between these lands is that some are higher and some are lower. And the land of Israel is the highest of all, and Jerusalem is higher than the rest of Israel. This is meant in a spiritual way, not to mean like was measured like Mount Everest. It doesn't mean in that sense. Mount Everest is barren, but Jerusalem is not. This is meant in a spiritual way, even though it is on earth. But whatever grows in one part is different from what grows in the other of the 7 parts. The Arctic area compared to the desert areas and the people in Africa will look different from the people in China, because every part of those 7 lands, climates, receives energy from different sources above in heaven. Now this is the whole idea of the flow. The second theory is that there are 7 layers to the earth. 6 of these worlds are found below the surface of the earth. So 6 of them are below the surface of the earth, and there is a firmament that divides each of them from the other ones. There's some kind of a clothing there that separates them. So we humans on the top layer on earth get the full impact of the 7 upper heavens, and the ones below only get from one above. So the one below, there's only one on the earth. And the different lands have 7 names. In the middle of all this is the Garden of Eden and hell. And there are different types of creatures in each layer of the earth, just as there are different objects in each of the 7 palaces, firmaments in heaven. Some of the creatures of the lower layers have 4 faces, some 2, and some have only 1 each. And none of them look alike. Creatures of each level look different to those of the other. Now, these are talking about differences between the amount of light, let's say that the light that is coming from the Ein Sof Baruch Hu and channeled in many different ways and minimized in different ways. And as that happens, it becomes fractured into many, many different parts. So here he says the operant number is 7. 7 lands or 7 layers. This Zohar explains that the first man, Adam, and his children were all on the first level of earth, which is called Tevel. The other 6 layers are made from the different palaces of heaven and also from the fire inside the earth and the spinning of the planets and the Shadim, which are demons, which make up the different creatures in the lower world. So we're going to stop here. This is Baruch Fleischman. This is Tikkun Elevator Kollel, and this we have been learning Jewish astrology from Reb Yaakov Kronenberg.